You know, when we think of asteroids, we usually just picture big rocks floating around in space. But there's so much more than that. They are, in a way, time capsules. They're these incredible relics from before our own planet was even fully formed, holding the very secrets of our solar system's origins, all locked away in dust and ice. And this is the incredible story of how we actually went out there and grabbed a piece of that history.
And that really gets to the heart of it, right? This is the central question, the one that drove one of NASA's most ambitious missions ever. What if the building blocks of planets, and maybe, just maybe, life itself, were tucked away inside these ancient objects? What if we could actually get our hands on a pure, completely untouched sample?
So to chase down an answer to that massive question, a mission was born. And this wasn't just about observing from afar with a telescope. No, the goal was to physically go out, retrieve an untouched piece of the early solar system, and bring it all the way home. This is the story of that journey back in time.
Okay, so you might be thinking, hold on a sec. Don't asteroids fall to Earth all the time? We call them meteorites. Why not just study those? And that is a great question. The answer comes down to one crucial word: contamination. See, when a meteorite burns through our atmosphere, that intense heat completely changes its delicate materials. And then, once it lands, it's exposed to everything on Earth: our air, our water, our microbes. It becomes almost impossible to know what's original and what's just Earth stuff. Getting a pristine sample, collected in space and sealed up tight for the ride home, is really the only way to get a pure look into our past.
All right, let me introduce you to the hero of our story. Its full name is Origins, Spectral Interpretation, Resource Identification, Security, Regolith Explorer, which I know is a mouthful, so we just call it OSIRIS-REx. This was NASA's very first mission, designed to fly all the way to an asteroid, physically grab a sample from its surface, and then haul that precious cargo all the way back to Earth.
And let me tell you, what a journey it was. This was no quick trip. We're talking about a 7-year odyssey. It launched back in 2016, then spent 2 years just cruising to the asteroid Bennu. After it arrived, it spent another 2 years dancing with it in deep space to figure out how to get that sample. And then it was another long journey just to bring it home in 2023. This mission was a marathon, not a sprint, for sure.
But here's where the story takes a huge turn. When OSIRIS-REx finally arrived at Bennu, the mission immediately ran into its first major and totally unexpected challenge. You see, based on the best radar data we had from Earth, the science team had a pretty clear picture of what to expect. They thought Bennu's surface would be relatively smooth, kind of like a sandy or gravelly beach, covered in fine materials, which would have been perfect for a nice, gentle sample collection.
But the reality, well, it was this: an absolutely treacherous, chaotic pile of rubble. The entire surface was covered in massive, dangerous boulders. I mean, we're talking about rocks the size of a football field. That smooth beach they were hoping for was actually a hazardous mountain range. Suddenly, the team had this enormous problem. How do you land a spacecraft on that?
And what a strange little world it turned out to be. Bennu is tiny, only about 500 meters across, and its gravity is incredibly weak. In fact, it still holds the record for the smallest object ever orbited by a spacecraft. That super low gravity, plus the fact that it spins like a top, created this whole new set of crazy challenges for the mission team.
So, this all led to the absolute climax of the mission. The team had spent more than a year just mapping this crazy boulder field, and they finally found one tiny spot that looked, well, semi-safe. The stage was set for this incredibly daring maneuver called the touch and go.
And you gotta understand, this was a nail-biter of a moment. Because of the time delay for signals to travel, they couldn't control it in real time with a joystick. Everything had to be pre-programmed. So, after a couple of successful practice runs, on October 20th, 2020, OSIRIS-REx began its final descent. It extended its collection arm, it reached out and touched the surface, and then something completely insane happened. Instead of hitting something solid, the arm just kept going. It sank nearly half a meter into the asteroid.
The mission team later described the surface as being so loosely packed, it was like stepping into a ball pit or a giant pit of foam. They said if an astronaut tried to stand on it, they would probably just sink right in and disappear. But here's the wild part. This huge surprise turned out to be an incredible advantage. The spacecraft fired a quick burst of nitrogen gas, and because the surface was so fluffy, it kicked up this enormous cloud of material. The mission's goal was to collect just 60 grams of sample. They ended up grabbing over 400 grams. So much, in fact, that a little rock actually jammed the collection flap open. It was a stunning, almost unbelievable success.
So, with that precious cargo locked away, OSIRIS-REx began its long trip home. But getting the sample was only half the battle. Now, this little treasure chest had to survive a fiery, brutal return to Earth.
Just picture this. The sample capsule was released from the main spacecraft and just slammed into our atmosphere at over 43,000 kilometers per hour. It pulled 32 Gs, that's 32 times the force of gravity, and heated up to temperatures half as hot as the surface of the sun. The engineering needed to protect that delicate sample from those insane conditions it's mind-boggling.
After that blistering 10-minute descent, it worked. A perfect landing right on target in the Utah desert. The treasure was home. But just when the team probably thought the hardest parts were finally over, they discovered one last, incredibly frustrating problem.
They couldn't open it. Can you believe it? The sample is back on Earth, safe and sound, but they couldn't get into the main container. 2 of the 35 fasteners were jammed shut. And the culprit? The very same asteroid dust they had traveled billions of kilometers to collect. To solve this, NASA engineers had to invent and build a brand new custom tool just to crack open their treasure chest without contaminating it. But after months of some seriously painstaking work, they finally got it open. And what they found inside is already rewriting the book on how our solar system came to be.
Okay, first big find, the sample is packed with carbon and water-bearing minerals. But the truly mind-blowing part, scientists have found amino acids, all 5 of the nucleobases, those are the chemical letters that make up our DNA, and even sugars like ribose and glucose. We're talking about the literal, fundamental building blocks of life as we know it, and they were just floating around in the early solar system. Second, the minerals themselves tell a story of a very different past. They found things like serpentine and iron sulfides, materials that, here on Earth, form near hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor. They also found water-soluble phosphates, which are absolutely essential for DNA. This all suggests that Bennu isn't just a random rock. It's probably a fragment of a much larger parent body, a little world that might have once had liquid water and active geology.
And this last one. This one is just poetic. The sample contains what are called presolar grains. This is actual stardust from stars that existed and died before our own sun was even born. In fact, the Bennu sample has 6 times more dust from supernova explosions than any other space material we've ever studied. It's a direct, physical link to the stellar neighborhood that came before us.
So the secrets locked inside this little sample from Bennu are going to keep scientists busy for decades to come. But for the heroic spacecraft that brought it to us, believe it or not, the story isn't over.
After dropping off its precious delivery, the spacecraft didn't retire. Nope, it fired up its thrusters and set off on a completely new journey. OSIRIS-Apex has been officially renamed OSIRIS-Apex, and it is right now on its way to a new target, the asteroid Apophis, which is going to make a really close flyby of Earth in 2029.
So just think about it. The OSIRIS mission gave us this absolutely unprecedented look into the origins of our solar system, the ingredients that made our planet and us possible. It connected us to our deepest past. And now, its new mission to a totally different kind of asteroid, one that comes close to Earth, is asking a whole new set of questions. What will it teach us about our future in this cosmic neighborhood?